All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Gridiron Expert. Happy Wednesday. Back with another Wednesday night live stream. What else would you expect? We are, this is our tradition, man. It's what we do every single week, and we couldn't be happier as we head into week 6. Week 6. The season is just flying by. It's like a good and bad thing, right? Like it's bad and it's unfortunate that it's going by so quick, but it's also great because we're starting to get into the meat of the conference schedule and things are really starting to heat up. And then there's just there's pros and cons to being at this point of the season. But we're in the month of October officially, and we're really getting close to that sports equinox, right? We're going to be in the thick of football season. The MLB playoffs are going. Basketball, both NBA and college, are right around the corner. Hockey, if you're into hockey, is coming around the corner. So it's really just a great time to be a sports fan as a whole, but especially when it comes to football. But we are so glad to be back, guys. So glad you could join us today, whether you're watching now, whether you're watching later. We are absolutely pumped to have you as part of our GE Nation. Happy you could join us tonight to talk some college football. We're going to open our phone lines later tonight to take your calls if you want to call in, to vent, to rant, to ask a question, whatever it may be. But we're also going to be addressing all of your questions and comments in the chat as well, answering everything you have listed there, all the banter that you have going on in there. And the thing is, as we enter week 6, we talked about it today with our Missouri and Texas A&M prediction video. We talked about it yesterday with our week 6 prediction video. This is kind of a lackluster weekend, right? This is a week that only features one top 25 matchup, ranked versus ranked matchup, a week that definitely is kind of like a very, very small appetizer to what we're getting next week. And really the week after that, the weekend of October 12th, the weekend of October 19th are going to be absolute cinema. It's going to be unbelievable, especially next week. We've got, Oklahoma, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, USC. I mean, the list, LSU, Ole Miss, let's go on and on about all of the great games we've got coming up next week. So this week is kind of just whetting our appetite a little bit, but I'm telling you, it's a dangerous game because a week like this that looks lackluster, that's never the case. This is the type of week where you're going to see massive, massive upsets. And we'll talk about that later in the show about which top 25 team or multiple top 25 teams could be on upset alert this weekend because typically this is when we see some of the craziest ones. No doubt about that. It's really when, you're not expecting anything that something crazy does happen. I want to say hi to the guys that are already here. We got DM, my man. Good to see him. He says lots going on. Not going to be here, but DM, whether you're here currently or watching later, popping in and out, we're super pumped to have you. And as always, appreciate your continued support since day one. I mean, literally since we started this thing back in 2017, I believe it was. So good to see you, DM. Hope you're doing well. Be reaching out soon. Robert, good to see you as well. Go Braves, he says. Hey, they lost game 1 for you last night, the Padres, but maybe tonight they can force a game 3. I got the Mets and Brewers going on over here in the corner right now. Just because why not? It's playoff baseball. So good to see you. Austin Pruitt, good to see you. Alex TV, good to have you here. My man, Mitch. Midterms suck. Yes, they do. I'm so glad I'm done with those, man. But midterms don't always suck as much as the real world work. I can tell you that. So it's a double-edged sword there. They're terrible, but those 9-to-5s aren't very fun either. Jerry, good to see you. So glad to have you here, Jerry. Man, tell you what, you're a busy man, but you are consistent being here on our live streams each week. So we're super pumped to have you. Pumped for that Syracuse game on Friday night. That game against UNLV is going to be a lot of fun. Mike Myrick, good to have you here, man. We'll talk Florida State tonight as well. I'm afraid things could get ugly on Saturday against Clemson. Hope I'm wrong, but it's not looking good. But Mike, good to have you as always. I appreciate you. Same with you, Brady Glassman. Happy to have you here. It is a big, big night, man. We are excited to get things going. Before we really dive into some of the topics that we've listed today, let me pull that back up. We'll do that in a little bit. I do want to give a shout out to our man, Chris Gates Fitness online training camp. The link for his stuff is down in the description below. He's got a great program that we are trying to utilize to the best of our abilities. But also, it's not just the workout programs that he has over there. It's the high protein, low calorie cookbook, specifically for tailgating, I should add. It's great for football season. It's that calorie calculator. It's that one-on-one coaching and training that you get that you really aren't going to get anywhere else from any other guy, not from your local 10 Fitness or Planet Fitness or whatever it is. So Chris has got some great stuff going on over there. They've got giveaways. They've got weekly college football pick'em. So if you can win that, you're going to win some big-time prizes. I mean, everything he's got is really, really special, especially very special for a sports community. I really kind of feel like at home, surrounded by a bunch of like-minded people. So go check it out. If you sign up using our promo code Gridiron, the link for that's in the description, get 80% off. 80% off your subscription for him. So, I mean, again, think 10 Fitness is going to do that? I'm working on a partnership with 10 Fitness. I just don't think it's going to happen. So go check it out. The link for that down in the description below. Check out our expert picks as well. That's down in the description. We've talked to many of you about those, and we'll be hammering those throughout the night. We have a lot going across the ticker throughout the night. We're on a 20-10 run. We are, last 30 games, last 3 weeks, we've won 20 of those games. So that's what, 66.7%. That's 2/3. So that tracks out. That adds up. Not just in the record, but adds up with our track record as we're beating out over 80% of the national handicappers. So we are on a big-time run. We expect to continue that run this Saturday. We've hit 70% of our bets the last 2 weeks. Why not go for 3 in a row? Why not go for 80 or 90% this week? Regardless, though, we're well over 500. We've got a fantastic winning record. We are beating out all the national handicappers right now. We would love you to join in on that. Our goal to that 24-hour live stream, it continues to get closer and closer. We're at 63%. I think when we started advertising this about 2 weeks ago, we were about at 50, 51. So we've grown a lot over the last few weeks. And a lot of that's thanks to you guys. We are now 37 away from that 24-hour live stream. And we're only in week 6 of the season. So go check it out. The link for that down in the description below. Maybe we can get 2 or 3 tonight. To get us to 65%, to get us to 66%. Every single one counts. And again, gets us one step closer to that 24-hour live stream, which we would, as I repeated before, we would do on a Friday night and would carry on into Saturday, where we would watch games with you all day long, discuss football with you all day long live as the games are happening. So, again, you guys can do it. I believe in you. I believe in the GE Nation. Help us get to that ultimate goal. Maybe we get a few tonight, which would be phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. All right, we got a lot to dive into. We're going to keep talking about the expert picks. We're going to keep talking about Chris Gates Fitness, but you're here to talk football. We're going to open up those phone lines here in just a little bit. A couple of things I want to talk on is let's start with week 5. Let's kind of hash out what happened last week and, talk about that. I want to talk about Georgia-Bama first. And actually, we'll create a banner for that just for now because that really, for me, was one of the best games that I've ever watched in my entire life. And I absolutely mean that. I'm not just saying that. And I'd love to get your thoughts down in the comments below. I got to watch that game at the Cosm. I don't know if anybody's ever been there. If you're in Dallas or LA, maybe you've seen it. It's like the Sphere in Las Vegas, but this was in Dallas. And it was one of the coolest viewing experiences I've ever seen in my life. I'm very happy that I got to be a part of that. I almost left, right? I almost left in the third quarter. I mean, you could not have scripted a better start for Alabama in that game. You just couldn't. The defense was flying all over the place. They were creating takeaways. Georgia could not figure out anything offensively. Georgia had no answer for Jalen Milroe in this offense whatsoever. I mean, it was unbelievable. And when you get up, what was it, 30-7? 30-7. I mean, it's still only 3 possessions. It could have been a lot worse. It never felt like the game was totally put away, but it was like, this is Alabama. They're at home. They're playing so well. There's no way Georgia's going to come all the way back and tie this game or take the lead in this game. It's just not happening, especially that short amount of time. And they did, slowly but surely. I remember I was with the group of people I was with. I said, hey, they were like, let's go. And I said, now let's see if Georgia scores on this drive. If Georgia gets stopped, we'll leave. Well, they didn't. They scored a touchdown. I said, all right, let's stay. And then they got to stop. They scored again and again and again. And that final 3-4 minute span in the fourth quarter was worth the price of admission. Whether you were at the game, whether you were at a bar, whether you were at where I mean, sitting on your couch. I mean, it was worth the price of admission. I truly have never seen anything like that. I really haven't. And I think that was a preview of a potential first of 2, maybe first of 3 meetings we could see between Georgia and Alabama this year. I mean, really it is. They could meet again in the SEC championship game, although I'm sure Texas would like to say something about that. But they could very well meet again in the college football playoff, which we'll talk about here in 1 second with our projection of the 12-team playoff based on our rankings. I mean, it's pretty wild how much it's shaken up over the last week. But if you're Alabama, you have to feel really good about yourselves. if you're Alabama, you have to sit there and go, man, we not only beat Georgia, but at one point we're beating them by like 23 points. That shows exactly what we're capable of. Not ideal to let them crawl all the way back in that game and make it a game, but regardless, a win is a win is a win. Georgia, regardless of whether you beat them by 40 or whether you beat them by 1, is a very, very good team and a very, very good win. Alabama has a lot to hang their hat about. They're very excited about that. They deserve that. Georgia, on the other hand, is kind of a double-edged sword for them, but in a way, they've got to feel good about themselves. The first half, atrocious, but what you saw over the final 30 minutes was very, very impressive because not many teams could do that. In that hostile of an environment against that good of a team, not many teams could lock in for the final 30 minutes and mount that big of a comeback. You just can't. That comes down to the players. That comes down to the coaching. So a lot of credit to Kirby Smart for rallying his troops. He could have gone in at halftime and go, guys, we got outplayed. We are overmatched. This is not good. Let's bounce back next week. Instead, he said, no, we can still win this thing. And they dang near did it. So Georgia can still say, yeah, a loss is a loss, and that's not ideal. No one wants that. But we put up one heck of a fight, especially in that second half. If they had gotten off to a better start, they win that game. I think everybody can agree with that. Georgia's, that game's tied at 17 at halftime or whatever. Georgia probably ends up winning that game. If we don't have a first half like that again, if we can play like we did the second half for the entire game against good teams like Texas and Ole Miss, maybe Alabama again, we'll be just fine. Georgia only drops a few spots in the rankings. They're still a playoff team. They're going to be looking good. So the game of the year, it lived up to the hype. It was everything that we wanted. I'm glad that it wasn't an absolute blowout. Personally, I really am. It was kind of happy. I was kind of happy to see it, come down to the wire, kind of like we all expected it to be, and all kind of we wanted it to be. But again, these two teams are absolutely national title contenders and will remain so for the rest of the year. They're both going to make the college football playoff, and really neither of them have anything to be upset about following that game on Saturday night, which again, for right now, will be the game of the year until proven otherwise. And to me, will go down as one of the best games of this decade. And I know we've got a lot left, right? We've got 5-6 seasons left before the decade's over. But I think when that time comes, as we prepare to enter 2030 years from now, I think you will look at that game and go, man, that is definitely in the top 20, the top 10, maybe. I mean, it was that good. It truly was that good. Now, we talked about this. I said, hey, these two teams could meet again, right? Could be the second time would be in the SEC championship if that happens, but maybe not then. Maybe they meet in the college football playoff. Maybe they meet in the 12-team playoff. And take a look at this. This is our projected 12-team playoff based on our GE Top 25 rankings. What do you notice? We've got the national championship as of right now projected to be Alabama and Georgia. And what I think is interesting is how crazy and how big of a difference 1 week can make in these projections. If you go back and watch our live stream from last week, we had Texas as the number 1 team in the country, and Bama was a couple spots below that. And I think that just comes to show you the importance of winning your conference and how interesting this format is, because in our rankings, we have Alabama at number 1. As you can see, they got the first round bye. We have Texas at number 2. But Texas in these projections is the number 5 seed. So even though we would have them ranked second in the country right now, they can't get a first round bye because they're in the same conference as Alabama. So they would be a 5 seed, missing out on the first round bye, although they would get to have home field advantage. And that's something to know for these tougher conferences, like at the SEC, like the Big Ten. You can be really, really, really good. You could go undefeated, but lose your conference championship. In the AP poll and the playoff poll, you might find yourself at number 3, number 4 in the country, but your seed might be number 7 because of the teams ahead of you in your conference, because of how competitive your conference is. So it's an interesting concept. I don't mind it because I don't think any of us would really want all of these SEC teams, all of these Big Ten teams to dominate the first round buys. I don't think anybody would want that. I think parity is good. I think opportunities for other programs and other conferences is good. But it is, again, Alabama's 1, they're number 1 seed. In our rankings, Texas is 2. They're the 5 seed. In our rankings, Tennessee is 3. They're the 6 seed. So it really is a very interesting dynamic. Now, you take a look at this. You take a look at our projections. And again, so much is going to change over these next few months. So much is going to change over these next few months when it comes down to it. But we got Bama at the number 1 seed, Ohio State 2, representing the Big Ten. We've got Miami at 3, representing the ACC, which, of course, I'd still believe they are the best team in the ACC as of right now. And then Iowa State currently would be our representative out of the Big 12, and what really is a wide open Big 12. We have the Cyclones ranked 14th. We've got them ranked 14th. The next highest Big 12 team is BYU at number 17. And that's what I think is so crazy about the Big 12. And think about this. Iowa State could make the college football playoff. BYU could make the college football playoff. Oklahoma State will not be making the college football playoff. One of the favorites in the preseason just got decimated by Kansas State. They're not going. And again, so much can change, but Iowa State, BYU, Kansas State still in the mix. Some would say Colorado's in the mix. They just won a big game on the road against UCF, which was very, very impressive. There's opportunities for these teams to make a run to the playoff because if they win the Big 12, they're going to get in. And it is really crowded at the top in the Big 12. It's very, very interesting. So right now we'd have Iowa State with a first-round bye hosting Texas because I believe they would beat Boise State as the highest-ranked group of 5 team. And I do have Boise State as the highest-ranked group of 5 team above that of UNLV. Although I think that's kind of that's the battle right now. Memphis lost. They kind of really damaged their shot. Texas State was considered to be a contender. They just got beat by Sam Houston, blew a 22-point lead, kind of blew their opportunity there. James Madison may be out of the Sun Belt, going to take some more liberty, maybe, but they're in the weakest conference in all of college football. So I really think it's a 2-team race between Boise State and UNLV. And the winner of that game, when they play each other in a few weeks, is going to be in the driver's seat. And honestly, UNLV does face a much tougher schedule down the stretch than that of Boise State. Boise kind of got their tougher tests out of the way. They crushed Washington State. They only lost by 3 to Oregon in the final seconds, but UNLV is still going to play Boise. They've still got to play Syracuse. I believe they've still got to play Oregon State and maybe Washington State. They got to play at least one of them. I don't have the schedule memorized, but regardless, tougher road for the Rebels, but we've seen them do crazier things. And they're already kind of defying expectations, defying odds right now with the whole NIL scandal, which we'll talk about shortly. Penn State, Oregon, who wouldn't love to see that? Those two teams not going to meet in the regular season. So even though they're from the Big Ten both, we would get to see that matchup in the playoff. And I'm all for that. I'm all for seeing conference games, especially if those two teams don't play in the regular season. I'm not all for playoff rematches in the opening round, regular season rematches in the opening round, but if you're playing a team that you didn't play in the regular season, but you just happen to be from the same conference, I'm not upset with that at all. So I think we'd all love to see Oregon travel to Happy Valley to take on Penn State. I think a Michigan-Tennessee matchup would be epic. Georgia and Missouri, both out of the SEC, would be a pretty fun game in Athens with the winner traveling to a neutral site to take on Ohio State. Now, here's the thing. Last thing, and I know I'm probably talking everybody's ears off. Look at the Final Four. Based on what I think would happen right now. Just my projections based on what the bracket looks like right now. The Final Four would be Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee. It would be an all SEC college football playoff semifinal. Semifinals, all SEC. Semifinals or national championship guaranteed to be an SEC matchup, which means you're guaranteed to have an SEC champion. This is a realistic possibility. I know that the committee will probably try to do everything in their power to prevent this from happening, to prevent it from being an all SEC, an all Big Ten, whatever it may be, semifinal. But sometimes you just can't avoid it. You just can't avoid it. And there is a strong possibility we could see that happen this year, or where 3 of the 4 teams are from the SEC or the Big Ten. It's not impossible for that to happen. I mean, again, guys, you look at our rankings, our GE Top 25 rankings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half of the top 10 for us right now resides out of the SEC. 5 of the top 10 teams are coming out of the SEC as of right now. So it's inevitable that you're going to see a couple SEC matchups. It's inevitable that you're going to see a couple of, maybe a semifinal game be between 2 SEC teams, maybe 2 SEC teams that have played each other. But I don't think any of us would be complaining, unless you're just an SEC hater, would be complaining with that Final Four. Georgia's defense versus that Tennessee offense, and a very underrated Tennessee defense too. Alabama and Texas, they do not play in the regular season this year. They did play in the regular season last year. There was a national championship back in 2009, so you'd have a chance to see them face off for a spot in the national championship this year. Jalen Milroe facing off against Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers, who knows who it may be. I mean, it would be cinema. It's absolute cinema. And I think none of us would really complain too much about that. So this is what it looks like right now, based on our rankings heading into week 6. It's going to look drastically different when we do our live stream next week. It'll look drastically different the week after that. It'll look drastically different every single week until we get to Selection Sunday. And that's just the fact of the matter. And that's the fickle world of college football that we live in, because the games and the teams can change on a whim on any given Saturday. I don't think any of us, you look at teams that were in here last year. Ole Miss last week was in here, pretty high seed. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky. Kansas State for the longest time was in. Kansas State nowhere to be found now. If so-and-so loses, this weekend. Arkansas beats Tennessee somehow this Saturday. Tennessee will probably not be in the picture and would not be in our semifinals when we do this live stream next week. So much can change in a span of 1 week. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter. It's fun to speculate. It's fun to look at. But nothing matters until Selection Sunday officially rolls around. And really, nothing matters too much until we get until about mid to late November. That's when things will really heat up, and the margin for error is very slim. And obviously, when you really can make a short list of teams that really even have a shot at this opportunity to make the 12-team playoff. No doubt about that. So that's that. I thought that was a good segue from the Georgia-Bama discussion, kind of showing you that right now, my projected national title as of today would be Alabama versus Georgia. That would be my pick as of right now. Could change again next week. All right. Want to discuss a few of the questions in the chat real quick, or any comments that had popped up, and then we'll open up the phone lines. I saw my man Nick asking what the call number was, and Nick, we will open it up here shortly for you, my man. Don't worry about that. Eddie, good to see you. Good to see you. Missouri better be on their A game, because College Station's a tough place to play. It'll be very scary to play Alabama in late October. Ryan Williams, Luther Burden. Yeah, it'll be a great wide receiver battle. Not very often we talk about that, right? Typically it's the quarterback battle or the offense versus the defense. But how about two of the best wide receivers, not just in the SEC, but in the entire country? Be a fun one. Let's see here. Eddie, hope you're doing well, man. Hope you're doing very well. Jerry, yeah, I agree with you. For the group of 5, it's either Boise or UNLV. That's kind of what it feels like right now. Unless someone just comes out of nowhere. My interesting take would be, what happens if those teams start screwing up? What if UNLV loses to Syracuse, which I know you'd be happy about, on Friday, and then they lose to Boise? Boise's already got a loss, but then Boise loses to, I don't know. I don't know. They have their schedule memorized. They lose to like Oregon State, San Jose State, whatever. I'll do y'all one fun little scenario, and then we'll open up the phone lines. Did you know that Army and Navy are both undefeated and both reside in the American Conference, which last time I checked is a group of 5 conference? Does anyone recognize that both those teams are playing really good ball right now? And we talked about Memphis. Memphis was a team that many thought could challenge for a playoff bid. So much experience. Well, Memphis already has a loss on their record. And who did they lose to? They lost to Navy. Army is one of the most efficient teams in the country. Now, here's the interesting scenario, right? If those two teams continue to play at a very high level, if they continue to just beat up on everybody, like the American Championship game is going to be before the Army-Navy game. I think the Army-Navy game's on December 14th, I think. December 14th. So, let's just hypothetically say that Army and Navy both meet or both finish the regular season undefeated, right? Because they're not playing the regular season until the Army-Navy game. They technically would have to play in the American Championship game. By this point, I would expect both of those programs to be ranked. Depending on what happens in the Mountain West, maybe higher ranked than Boise, maybe higher ranked than UNLV or any other newcomer out there. So what if, and I'm just going to pick Army here. What if Army beats Navy in the American Championship? Okay. Then the next day is Selection Sunday, but Army and Navy haven't played in the Army-Navy game. How would that work? That is a kind of a dream scenario if you're an Army-Navy fan, or really for, I think, most of America. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I love seeing the military academies thrive. I love seeing Army, Navy, Air Force I love to see them win. I love to see them do well. I love their style of play. I love their traditions and just the energy they bring every single week. I feel those programs kind of get overlooked, and we've got our pennants back here sent in by our man's Murph the Surf and DM. Credit to them as always. But I love seeing them do so well. I think it would be so crazy to see an Army or Navy team in the college football playoff. As an independent, they would not have gotten that opportunity, right? Army as an independent goes undefeated. No one bats an eye. They're not going to playoff. But in the American, maybe they could. Maybe they could have that shot. So, and I'm just saying right now, if I'm the number 5 seed and I'm facing Army or Navy, I'm not wanting to play them. That triple option, man, and these teams are actually starting to throw it a little bit more too. As strong as they are, I'm not wanting to play Army or Navy. That's a tough offense to stop, even for some of the best teams in the country. So they would be a tough out. They would not be a pushover, even though they would have to travel to whoever the number 5 seed would be, Texas, Oregon, whoever. So I'm all for it. I think it would be awesome. And it's actually a possibility. Would the playoff committee rank them there? That remains to be seen. But if Boise and UNLV and guys like that start to screw up, do not sleep on Army or Navy possibly being that group of 5 champion. No one's talking about it, but they deserve some attention. They deserve some attention. Let's see here. I think Double O'Neill had a good take here. And real quick, George, good to see you, George. What's going on, man? It's been too long. Happy to have you, man. Hope you're doing well. God, I can't remember the last time I saw your name pop up, man. I hope you're doing well. So good to hear from you. Happy to have you on board as always, man. Whether you're here or you're not here, we know you're always part of the GE Nation, man. So I'm super pumped to have you and excited to see you stop by for a little bit. Always welcome. Always welcome. Double O'Neill, both the ACC and Big 12 champs have 2 or more losses. Boise State runs the table and gets the 4 seed. Yeah, that's also not an unrealistic possibility. That is something that people are, I think in a lot of our minds, we just picture that the group of 5 champion is automatically locked into that 12 seed. That's not the case. That's not the case. If they work their way up the ladder and find themselves pretty highly ranked by the end of the season, maybe more highly ranked of a Big 12 or an ACC champ that maybe could struggle a little bit, it's not out of the realm of possibility. They might not get the 4 seed. They could, though, because they're a conference champ. There's only 4 power conferences and then the group of 5. So they pretty much would be guaranteed that number 4 seed if they jump the ACC or Big 12 champ, which would be insane. Can you imagine that? Again, we picture these group of 5 teams locked into the 12 seed. Every projection, the 12 seeds, group of 5, group of 5, group of 5. I don't think that's going to happen in the ACC because I think Miami or Clemson. Miami and Clemson both look really, really good right now. So one of them is bound to finish higher ranked and to get a first-round bye. But the Big 12, yeah, that's a possibility because the Big 12 is wide open right now. I don't know who's winning that conference. I picked Kansas State, but they've already got a conference loss. I think I'd still side with them. I think if they can get to Arlington, they'll win it. But BYU does look very good. Iowa State looks very good. Arizona, some would say, looks good. Utah is good if Cam Rising can come back. And I'll tell you right now, I'm tired. If I'm a Utah fan, I'm tired of playing this game. All last year, every week, it was Cam Rising might play. We don't know. We're going to talk about it. We're going to see. Who knows? And then you'd get to game day and they go, he's not playing. He's not playing. And he didn't play an entire game all year. So then he comes back this year. We know he's healthy. He's playing. Then he gets hurt again. And originally it was just an injury to his finger or his hand, like around there, right? Like, it's not that big a deal. He's just going to miss the Utah State game. We could beat Utah State with a 3rd grader playing quarterback. Like, and then it's like, oh, well, now he's hurt for the next game. Okay, let's survive that. And, oh, now he's hurt. Like, when's he coming back? Utah's got the talent. But if they don't have their star quarterback, they're not going anywhere, just like we saw last year. Still won 8 games, but they weren't going to win the Pac-12 or anything without him. So very, very frustrating if you're a Utah fan. And not so much frustrating that he keeps getting hurt. That's frustrating in and of itself. It's frustrating that you're consistently left in the dark. It's frustrating that you don't know on a week-to-week basis if your quarterback's going to play. Because once again, if they hadn't pulled this crap last year, maybe I'd give them the benefit of the doubt. But the fact that every week it was unknown whether Rising was going to play or not until about mid-season when they said, yeah, he's just going to be out the rest of the year. Like, stop giving your fan base, false hope. Stop giving, the media false hope. Bettors, if you're betting on games, that's frustrating because it's like, all right, my pick my pick for the week on this Utah game kind of hinges on whether or not Cam Rising plays. And I see many handicappers out there that say, if we get word Rising's playing, take Utah. If we get word that he's not playing, go against Utah. I mean, that's how big of a difference he makes. It determines the outcome of your bet and your pick. And I mean, it's ridiculous. And I think now in this era of NIL, which I'm not a fan of, by the way, but in this era of NIL, I think it is time that we start releasing injury reports just like we do in the NFL for everybody's peace of mind, for the fan base, for the bettors, for anybody. And I know the SEC is already starting to do that. The SEC is kind of starting to release those midweek injury reports, kind of give you an update. But the thing is, though, you can just lie about that too. If Utah was doing injury reports right now, it would say Cam Rising questionable all week long, and then on Saturday they'd just be like, "Oh, he's not good to go." We said he was questionable though, so you can't fine us. Like, you can't get mad at us that he's not playing because we said he was questionable. We never said he was healthy, or probable is even better than questionable. So there's ways around it. There's ways to lie, and that's exactly what they do. Very, very frustrating though. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. But yeah, Double O'Neill, that is a very, very good question, and it's a bold take, but it's not that bold and that's not a shot at you, because it's a legitimate possibility. It really is. It is a very legitimate possibility. Scott Young, good to see you, my guy. Go Bucks. OH. Someone else said OH. I was going to go too. Alan Pickens did. Both of you guys are big Ohio State fans there. Let's see. All right, seriously, last one here. Then I'm opening up the lines. George Dykes, thoughts on Northern Illinois tough losses to Buffalo and NC State. I don't think the Northern Illinois win over Notre Dame was a fluke. They looked legit. I'm just going to go on record and say that I told everybody here, and I can't remember on the live stream. I think it was the live stream. I went on record and I said, listen, at the time, I did not rank Northern Illinois the week after they beat Notre Dame, because I've seen this story before where a group of 5 team pulls off a massive upset, and then the very next week they lose to a team in their own conference that they shouldn't. Toledo's done that. Louisiana Monroe's done that. Northern Illinois just did that against Buffalo. It happens every time. Everybody thinks that team's God now because they beat the number 5 team in the country, and they go home on their high horse. They think they're legit. They think they've got playoff aspirations, and it gets in their head. The pressure gets too much, and they lose a game they shouldn't. That's exactly what happened in Northern Illinois against Buffalo. That's why I said that. I'm not ranking them. The AP put them at like number 20 or whatever the heck it was. And I was like, that's stupid. They've got to prove it. One random win here and there doesn't mean that you are the best team in the world and that you're a top 25 team. And what happened? That's exactly what happened in Northern Illinois. They lose to Buffalo. And a Buffalo team that's really not all that great. Buffalo team that just got destroyed against UConn, which is going to go bowling this year, but still not world beaters by any means. So I do think it's a fluke. I think it was, they looked good, and Notre Dame's offense still isn't good. It's not. Notre Dame's offense is still really, really bad. But I think, I'm going to pull a Hugh Freeze on you. You play that game 9 more times, I think Notre Dame wins it 9 out of 9. And I hate that Hugh Freeze quote with a passion. I think Hugh Freeze is an idiot, but that's my personal take. It's my personal take. So, but all the credit in the world to him. I was rooting for him. I was happy to see Northern Illinois. Not that it was against Notre Dame, but it was cool to see him win the game. I love Thomas Hammock. I think he's a great coach. They deserve to win. They absolutely deserve to win. No doubt about that. I thought it was kind of cool to see them in the mix for the playoff for, like 24 hours. But, it is what it is. They're out of it now. With the loss to Buffalo, the loss to NC State, they will not have a shot at the playoff now. It really comes down to Boise State, UNLV, or maybe some other mystery team that we're not talking about right now. Toledo could be it. They run the table the rest of the way. They beat Mississippi State. Could Army, Navy, Liberty, if they go undefeated. Maybe they won't have a choice but to put Liberty back in it. Although I think the committee would like to avoid that. A lot of opportunities, man. A lot of opportunities. Justin Hardy, good to see you. Doggy, good to see you. Very happy to have you both here. Let's open up the phone lines here. We've got about, what time is it? Got about an hour to take calls tonight before I've got to run, unfortunately. But we've got plenty of time to keep talking in the chat. There's plenty of time to take your phone calls. 870-955-4797. That's our call-in number today, as it is every single week. And again, we'll try to limit you guys to about 5 minutes or so we can get to as many people. Get through as many calls as we can, get to talk to as many people as we can tonight. Just bear with us on that. Might have to cut you off. But look at that. Already getting our first caller. Let's get to it. Let's pull it up here. Let's see. All right. Whoever's calling in, we'll get to you in 1 second. But our first caller, who's with us?
TriStar. What's up?
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh, not much, man. I'm just ready for Saturday. We have another installment of the SEC Southwest Conference Invitational. Tennessee and Arkansas.
You know it. It's I think it's going to be a fun atmosphere, but maybe not a fun game if you're rooting for the Hogs.
Yeah, I mean, the battered ball syndrome in me is like, hey, listen, we got to take this game seriously. Can't overlook it because in 2 weeks we play Alabama, and looking at how they've looked, that's going to be talking about an atmosphere. That's going to be a heck of an atmosphere. It'll probably be a night game. But just with everything that's going on, with Tennessee this year, I'm extremely happy. Obviously I've got my concerns, especially with offensive line depth, because I do cover the University of Tennessee independently. Defense has been as advertised. Offensive line is kind of a concern. Nico's had, his moments, his growing pains, but I think overall he's played about as good as you could have. I mean, I think they're not really, making it where he's got to go out there and be the hero. I think how they're doing him is very well. And I think, the fact that they've not really opened up the playbook that much, which is kind of hilarious. They didn't really open up the playbook that much against Oklahoma even.
No, they didn't have to. I mean, that was the beauty of it. Oklahoma really just shot themselves in the foot so many times that Tennessee was able to kind of, I think, hold back a little bit. And that was the game that I expected Tennessee to.
And that's the thing, they kind of started making that, a little bit of a comeback once they put in that other quarterback who could run. And I think what it is because they know kind of how thin they are on the offensive line. I don't think they're really pushing anything right now until they get to playing, Alabama or at Georgia, or like a real beat of their schedule where they're really going to need to open up the playbook. But I think this game against Arkansas, I think how this game is going to go. Because see, what I see out of Arkansas right now, they have a good offense. I like Taylor Green. He's mobile. He can't really throw that great, but, he's a mobile quarterback. They got a pretty good offense. Bobby Petrino is a known offensive mind. He's been there before. He's done it in the SEC before. Obviously, he produced Lamar Jackson. So, I mean, he knows how to draw stuff up. And that's going to be a great environment, but I just think Tennessee's too much for him. I think, the wheels are kind of starting to come off for Arkansas right now, and I don't know if Sam Pittman's going to be there at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's. I think that's the big question around Fayetteville right now is whether or not he's still going to stick around. And I'm not going to yet. I'm sure I will by the end of the night. About ranting about Arkansas and how bad they are and how bad the culture is there. Unlike what's going on at Tennessee, significantly better. But I agree with you. And we're actually going to predict this game here on the channel tomorrow. We've got a full video coming out on Tennessee and Arkansas.
I think we cover. I mean, I'm not going to say we're going to beat them like 60-3 or anything. No, I don't think that. I think you're going to see kind of like where I think they kind of come out, at least the first couple drives where they're able to move the ball decently because of the fact they got a mobile quarterback. But I think once Tennessee kind of gets settled in, I think they pull away pretty easily because they don't have a defense. And kind of like Auburn, they are pretty bad with turnovers.
Yes, that is what has played Arkansas. Arkansas would be 5-0 right now if they knew how to hold on to the ball.
Because, and look at all these games like the Oklahoma State game where they, were 2-1 with offensive production with Oak State and still somehow lost that game. I was sitting there watching the game and I was like, how is this game even close? Because if you're going to look at the offensive stats from that game, you would have thought Arkansas was going to run away with it.
Right. Well, most teams would.
Stop a nosebleed.
Yeah, most teams would. Most teams that put up those type of numbers and play that well would dominate that game. But Arkansas consistently finds new ways to lose games. That's kind of their specialty. And I actually wouldn't expect anything like that. Won't be the last time you see that happen this year for them.
Oh, no. And their schedule gets tougher as the season goes. So, I mean, we'll see with Arkansas. Now, I had two teams coming into the season, I said on my Twitter, that I'm watching this year. One of them was obviously Nebraska because of Dylan Rayola. And the other one because I like what they've got. I like what Brinke's done there, and that's Georgia Tech. And Tech is not a bad team. I think Nebraska, yeah, they lost that, kind of slugfest against Illinois. But, I mean, Nebraska looks really good. And, I mean, Tech, we'll see. I mean, I don't think that they have like a brutal schedule or anything. But, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, Nebraska, I think, is matching expectations. Honestly, maybe a little under achieving, considering many thought they'd beat Illinois at home. But no, Nebraska, this was the year they had to go bowling, and it looks like they're definitely on track to go bowling. They finally got a quarterback. The defense is actually very good. So I love Matt Rule. He's a program builder, and traditionally, everywhere he's been, in college at least, Temple, Baylor, now Nebraska, typically year two.
Usually the first year is terrible. The second year, they make a bowl game. The third year, they compete for a championship.
Right.
That's how it was at Temple, and that's how it was at Baylor. And, I'll see. We'll see where they go. And obviously Tech, they lost that. Who was it that they lost to?
Well, Nebraska lost to Illinois earlier.
No.
Tech lost to Syracuse. Yeah,
that's right. They lost that game, and I kind of hate it for them because, as people will hear me on Twitter say, they'll always be an SEC team at heart. They just might have another patch on.
Hey, sure, yeah.
But now, before I go, one question is: have you seen these reports about all the super conference talks and about how the SEC and Big Ten is trying to have 4 auto bids? Have you seen this?
I have, and that's actually a topic that we're going to address tonight, later on the stream.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this: as someone whose family donates to the University of Tennessee, that's not the end goal. Is because right now these TV networks have gained so much power that now you're going to start seeing a lot of this start to actually kind of revert back because nobody is liking any of this change. And that's what I see happening. I think eventually you're going to maybe even see old conferences come back just because you've got so many egos.
I wouldn't put anything past it at this point. And like I said, we're going to touch more on that later tonight, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But there's a major shift coming, no doubt about that, and we'll touch more about that. Trey, we're getting a couple of calls in, so I want to get them on the line. But I appreciate you calling in and stay tuned because we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes.
Thank you.
All right, that was our man, I think TriStar calling in. Appreciate the call. Great topics too. Big Tennessee fan, which we'll talk about Tennessee and Arkansas tomorrow on the channel. We're gonna have a prediction video out for them, but we'll talk about them tonight as well. As I see, our man Trey is here. I definitely want to talk to you, Trey. Thanks for being here. Same for you, Max. What's going on, Max Todd? Congrats on that big Bama win. Massive Bama win. We'll touch more on that game, and I want to hear about your experience here shortly. But we're getting another call right now, so let's. I think that's pull them up here. All right, let's see. Is this Thomas?
This is Thomas.
What's going on? How are you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing all right. I got a little work debate for you to help us settle here. I'm a Boise State fan living in SEC country, so I'm sure you can tell where I'm going with this. If Ashton Jeanty breaks Barry Sanders' rushing record and Boise State makes the playoffs, do you think that's a Heisman-worthy season? Not just to get to the New York season, but a Heisman season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's actually ridiculous that Jeanty is getting I guess, somewhat snubbed right now when we're talking about the Heisman. I mean, he's the best running back in the country by far. The dude's averaging over 10 yards per carry. He'll eclipse 1,000 yards on the season by the end of this Saturday because Utah State's got a horrendous defense. So, and he's doing it against decent teams. Look, I get it. The Heisman is typically a quarterback award. The Heisman, they like to take into account your strength of schedule and who you play. But when it's all said and done, he will have had dominant performances against Washington State, who is technically, in my eyes, still a power team, who does have wins over Texas Tech and Washington. He'll have a very good performance against Oregon, who could be a playoff team, UNLV, who could be a ranked team, maybe UNLV again in the Mountain West Championship game. So, if he goes on to break the record and Boise makes the college football playoff, which they would not do if it weren't for him, I don't see why he shouldn't win the Heisman. And I know you're going to say, you got Cam Ward's playing great ball, and there's a lot of other guys out there that could be elite contenders, but Jeanty is by far the best running back in the country and one of the best players in the country.
Yep, I agree. I do think that strength of schedule, I don't know off the top of my head, I know UNLV plays tough schedule, but that's like a pretty decent strength of schedule for a group of 5 team with Oregon State, Wazoo, and likely UNLV twice. So I don't think it's like, it's not like the old WAC days or, like a Conference USA schedule. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I want to, and that's the thing. If he was doing this in the Conference USA, beating up on, Kennesaw State and Florida International every week, it's a different story. I think most people could probably do that. But like you were saying, it's a much more difficult schedule than your typical Mountain West schedule. He's not even beaten up on, Utah State's bad. And there's a couple other teams out there that have been bad. But, he's not playing a slate of Utah State, New Mexico, those guys every single week. He's got some power, multiple, which is very unusual for a group of 5 team, multiple power opponents on the schedule. The Mountain West actually does have some dogs this year, some actually pretty decent squads. Obviously, UNLV being one of them. San Jose State's not that bad. Nevada's actually got an underrated defense. I think that should really be taken into some significant account. And more than likely what's going to happen is he might not break the record. He could. He's on pace to do it. If he falls short, they'll invite him to New York because that's, in their eyes, good enough. Look, we invited a group of 5 player to New York for the Heisman ceremony. Look how big of a deal that is. And then they'll give it to a quarterback. And if the quarterback truly is deserving, I don't have a problem with it. But if Jeanty continues at this rate and breaks one of the records that I don't think anybody ever thought would be broken in college football, then I don't know how you can't give it to him.
I agree. I'll keep it short then. Thanks, Big Dog. Big fan. Keep up the good work.
Hey, I appreciate the call, Thomas. Thank you, man. Great call. Great question. Freaking love Ashton Jeanty, man. I'm telling you, he is. Again, if he was playing such a weak schedule, you could have an argument against him, but he's not. And actually, and again, phone lines remain open. It's ticking across the bottom here, so feel free to call in. We might put you on hold for a second if we do. We got a lot of calls tonight, and as I always say, I don't have a screener, unfortunately. I'm looking at Boise's schedule. All right, look, they have played Oregon. And in that game against Oregon, Ashton Jeanty had 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. All right? 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, I'm going to finish this and we're going to get to our call. I'm going to put him on hold.
To accept, press 1.
All right. Whoever's calling in, bear with us for 1 second. We've got you on hold. We're going to come back, so stay on the line with us. I want to get him on hold for that. So 192 yards and 3 touchdowns against Oregon, all right? And then they played Washington State last week, beat a solid Washington State team by 21 points. Jeanty had, 259 yards and 4 touchdowns. So this guy right now has, once again, 845 rushing yards, 13 rushing touchdowns on 82 carries, which is averaging about 20 carries a game, give or take. He's averaging 10.3 yards per carry. You want to talk about strength of schedule. Again, unbelievable performance against a top 10 team in Oregon on the road. Dominant performance against Washington State. UNLV is ranked in the top 25 right now. Even if they're not ranked in the top 25, when they play on October 25th, that is still a very good UNLV team that should hold some weight. Their season finale on November 29th is against Oregon State, who more than likely will be a bowl team at that point and is a power conference or power team in my eyes by definition. If Boise runs the table and they're 11-1, they will go to the Mountain West Championship game, where more than likely they would play UNLV once again. Maybe it's Fresno State. Maybe it's San Jose State. Those teams are looking very good right now too. Regardless, you're winning a conference championship, and a guy that can go rush for almost 200 yards in a conference championship, that should not be overlooked. So again, he will eclipse the 1,000-yard mark in, 5 games? 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th game of the year, he'll hit 1,000 yards. Because he will dominate Utah State, I believe. Might get taken out early. That's how bad it'll be. So watch out, man. I love the Ashton Jeanty talk. I really do. I love the Boise State talk because I was a huge fan of Boise State. Like, I loved watching them play back in the early 2010s with Kellen Moore and guys like that when they were, in contention for a BCS national title, but could never get over the hump because we didn't have a playoff and we didn't have, their strength of schedule was so weak. Now they have a chance to get there. And I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't want to see Boise State in the playoff either. If they're the number 12 seed or maybe the number 4 seed, as Double O'Neal said, I don't want to see them. I don't want to see them because their defense is pretty sneaky too. More talk on that. And Noah Madrigal, what's going on, Noah? Good to have you, man. Happy to have you here. We'll continue to take all your questions and comments in the chat, but let's get to who is on the line with us right now. Who's with us?
Yeah, it's Gary.
What's up, Gary? How you doing?
Hey, yeah, I'm good. So I just found out about your channel recently, so I was calling in. So I had a question about the Bama Georgia game.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Bama win, it was a big win though, but I think people might be overhyping the win because I feel like Georgia isn't the team we thought they were going to be in the preseason, and after what I saw, I think they matched up really poorly against Texas because Texas, I think, looks much better than Georgia offensively and defensively. So I think Texas should be like the favorite to win the playoffs.
Yeah, no, Gary, that's I agree with you. I agree and disagree. I don't think we're overhyping the Bama win. I think that Bama win deserves to be hyped up. I think the Bama win deserve a lot of credit and a lot of recognition for that win. That's still beating a team that was higher ranked than you. Even though it was at Alabama, they were, like I said at the beginning of the show, I think for me, the game of the year as of right now, maybe one of the best games of this decade when it's all said and done. I agree with you, though. So I disagree that we're overhyping the win. I do agree with you that Georgia has not looked like the team we thought they'd be when the season started. They dominated Clemson, which we expected. Clemson's looking really good now, but no one thought Clemson was going to put up a good fight back in the first week of the year. They did not look good against Kentucky, but maybe Kentucky's better than we thought because they just went on the road and beat Ole Miss, and then obviously did not look that great against Alabama. But here's the thing. Georgia would have beaten Alabama last week if they had played a semi-decent first half. If they don't get off to that horrid start in the first half, I think they end up winning that game. They just dug themselves so deep of a hole in a tough environment that they weren't able to get out of it. And they nearly did. Had the lead late in the fourth quarter. So, but I do agree with you that right now, Georgia does have to travel to Texas here in a few weeks. And, call me in 2 weeks. Maybe something's going to change. But if I had to pick a winner for that game right now, I am picking Texas. Texas looks phenomenal. I've got Alabama at number 1 in my rankings. I've got Texas at number 2. They look really, really good. Really good. And so I do think Texas could win the whole dang thing this year. Regardless of who's at quarterback, by the way, whether it's Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers. I think they can win the whole thing with either of them. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with you for part of that and disagreeing with you on the other.
Yeah, okay. So, one last thing. Ashton Jeanty, do you think he might fall in the draft a lot because he plays for Boise State? Because I feel like that's going to happen.
You think he's going to fall?
Yeah, because he played for Boise State, so I think I don't know. I feel like these scouts, they might not take him that high.
No, it's kind of the argument we were just making a second ago is, he plays for a smaller school. He's not playing in the SEC or the Big Ten, but he's, once again, not putting up these numbers against really bad opponents. He's a physical runner. He's a great, he's got the speed. He's got the bruising ability, and he's doing it against quality opponents like Oregon, Washington State. Oregon State probably at the end of the year, UNLV, like, and this isn't just a one-time thing either. Ashton Genty's not some one-hit wonder, some guy that's come out of nowhere. He had a really good season last year. Not nearly as good as he's having now, but it was a good year last year too. So that's back-to-back very good seasons in a relatively competitive Mountain West Conference. This year, a much more difficult schedule than what they faced in 2023. So I don't know if he's going to be a first rounder. I mean, there's really just comes down to what teams need. But I don't think his draft stock's going to be hurt by who he plays for.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
All right, Gary, appreciate the call, man.
Thanks.
It's a good question. And on that topic, too, I mean, that is something, and the phone line's still open. If we get a call, we'll put you on hold for a second. Like, I get the point Gary's trying to make there. Obviously, who you play does matter. A guy putting up those type of yards in the SEC, that's way more impressive than a guy doing that in the Mountain West or whatever. I get it. And we've got Nick calling in, so I'm going to get him on there. And then I'm going to finish my thought about that. Nick, hold on for 1 second, my guy. So I agree with that in some sense. But like, if you go back and look historically at quarterbacks, offensive linemen, defense, I mean, any position, it doesn't matter. Like Carson Wentz, when he got drafted, was the quarterback at North Dakota State. Like, North Dakota State's a phenomenal program. We know this. He was not seeing SEC defenses every single week, and yet he was the number 2 pick in the draft. We've seen guys, was it Eric Fisher, I think, on the offensive line, went to like Central Michigan and was the number 1 pick that year. Didn't he go to the Chiefs, maybe? That's years and years and years ago. But like, if you're good enough, it doesn't really matter where you play. If you're good enough, it doesn't matter where you play, who you play. You're going to get drafted and you have a chance to make a name for yourself. And so again, and especially if you're really, really good, you're going to get drafted high enough. I mean, we've seen guys get drafted from Eastern Illinois and North Dakota State, these FCS programs, very high too, not 7th round, like, first round, 2nd round. Genty's playing at Boise State, who's a known power in college football and is playing very good teams and performing well against them. The only thing that would hurt Ashton Genty would be if he was playing very poorly against Oregon and Washington State, but dominating Utah State. Okay, yeah, he can beat up on the bad teams, but when he plays a semi-decent team, he can't do anything. That's the only thing that would hurt him, but that's not even happening. That's not happening. He's dominating everybody he plays, and that's what makes him so special. But yeah, Gary, thank you for the call, man. Great topics about Alabama, great topics about Genty. I really, really appreciate that. All right, before we get to Nick on the call, he's on hold right now, waiting very patiently, so we're going to get to him in 1 second. Again, I think we said hi to a lot of people. Let's see. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. Saw a guy, Max Todd. Happy to have you. My man, Trey. Good to see you, as always. Trey, we'll talk about some Arkansas here shortly. And reach out to you on Twitter as well. But happy to have you here, Trey. I appreciate you and all your support. Doggy, I appreciate you. I see your question there about Florida State and Deion Sanders. We're going to come back to that. We will get to all of your questions and comments in the chat tonight. I can promise you. So to keep them coming. But Max, again, good to hear you. I want to hear about your night last weekend in Tuscaloosa. Unbelievable experience. Anthony James, good to see you, my guy. Happy to have you here. 2 weeks in a row, too. Happy we can get you back to back. And we'll answer your question here about Jed Fish. Alan Pickens, happy to have you. And Anthony says Eagles are going to draft the Georgia running back. Eagles draft the Georgia running back. I mean, at this point, right? Why not? I mean, the Eagles are basically becoming Georgia East, right? I mean, Philadelphia is basically becoming Georgia 2.0. They're drafting just about everybody from that program. I feel like Kirby Smart and Nick Sirianni had like some sort of agreement. Although we're not talking NFL right now, but I don't know if Nick Sirianni is going to be around much longer. After this season. Just my take. All right. Expert picks goals still sitting at 63. We'd love to get to 65 tonight. Again, we're on a 20-10 run against the spread. And we're going to keep building on that this week. Our picks just came out today. So our week 6 picks for college, our week 5 picks for NFL, they're already out on our website. They already went out in our betting newsletter, which I will forward to you. I will forward that to you if you do sign up for those today, the combo package, of course. So we'd love to get to that 100 goal by the end of the season, but definitely here very soon so we can get to that 24-hour live stream. we'll give you that major shout out and update our standings live on air if we can get a couple more subscribers here tonight. So go check it out. The link for everything down in the description below. Do not miss out. Do not miss out. You are missing out big time if you're not signed up already. All right, let's get to it. It's been way too long since we've talked to Nick. What's going on, Nick?
How you doing, bro?
Doing good, man. Been a while. Happy to hear from you.
Yeah, you too, man. So the guy literally kind of explained when Georgia played Bama. I'm happy that my dogs we caught our way back, took the fucking lead. I'm still not a Mike Bobo fan. That's no secret. I really wish we'd have lost Todd Monken. But have you noticed, man? Like Georgia has not had an elite wide receiver since George Pickens. And every Georgia fan, why we couldn't run the ball? We couldn't run the ball. We had to ball. Carson took the ball 50 times in that game.
Yeah.
And it's like Ohio State recruits elite wide receivers. Alabama recruits elite wide receivers. And it's like, Kirby, like, what are you doing, man? Like, we got to do something wide receiver core. We can't just get these Lad McConkey's and Dominic Lovett and Dylan Bells. And like, they're good. They're not elite, but they're good. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, come on, man. You got to get with the program, man.
Yeah, and that's interesting, too. You keep going, and I'll chime in. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting because obviously Kirby's a fantastic recruiter. That he wouldn't have 2 national titles in Athens if he couldn't recruit. And Lad McConkey was good. Brock Bowers was great. Obviously at tight end, but really played the game more like a wide receiver. And Georgia kind of established their brand as a program that wanted to run the ball, wanted to bully you up front. And for years, even before Kirby got there, you had so many great running backs come through Athens. But I agree with you. It is interesting that they're not getting these elite, like truly elite wide receivers, not just through recruiting high schoolers, but even the transfer portal. Yeah, Dominic Lovett was a big name. Ra Thomas at one point was a big name. Some guys have come through there, but no one extremely elite that's been able to help out Stetson Bennett, that's been able to help out Carson Beck. And that it does confuse me as well. And I don't know if that's because of the style of play that Georgia runs offensively. Are they being told, like, hey, you can come here, but we're not a very pass-happy squad as compared to a team like Ohio State that was throwing the ball a lot more, a team like Alabama that was throwing a lot more? I don't know, but that's a very good point.
I don't understand it, man. It gives me a heavy different time, and it's like we're banging a head on the fucking wall every time. It's like, dude, okay, this is all the people in fucking Bama. Ryan Williams is in the league with a kid at 17 doing all this stuff and torched our secondary like it was candy. And it's like always Kirby wants to recruit inside linebackers and outside linebackers. That's great. I love the inside linebackers and outside linebackers. The defense is fine. I'm not worried about the defense as long as Kirby there. But man, come on, Kirby. Can we get an elite defensive lineman? Can we get a dual threat quarterback? We haven't had one since Justin Fields. You see how that turned out. And it's just really frustrating. I still think Georgia will make the playoffs. I think we'll bounce back after this game. I'm not scared of playing Ole Miss anymore. I think Ole Miss is a fraud. I'm still worried about Texas and Tennessee, but at least we get Tennessee at home.
Yeah, I think you're fine. I think Georgia is still absolutely loaded with talent. I think there is a cause of concern, just as you mentioned, because the schedule's so tough. They'll be favored, I think, in the majority of those games. I agree. I don't know if I'd be as scared about Ole Miss anymore. Ole Miss couldn't move the ball against Kentucky. Now, neither could Georgia, for that matter. Georgia was lucky to beat Kentucky a few weeks ago. But, I don't know if I'd be too scared about Ole Miss. I think I am scared. If I was Georgia, I'd be a little nervous about Texas, especially with that game being in Austin. The Tennessee game is interesting. Having it in Athens helps, but Tennessee is the real deal. Everybody wants to talk about that offense. That Tennessee defense is dangerous. But I'm interested more than anything, Nick, to see what happens this Saturday. Auburn is a bad team. They can't hold on to the ball. They have no quarterback whatsoever. It's in Athens. How does Georgia respond? Is this going to be one of those games where Georgia can name the score before the kickoff, and that's exactly what it's going to be? Is it one of those games where they're slightly hungover and they're just going to kind of sleepwalk through this game? I mean, and I do. I think Georgia could sleepwalk through this game and still win by 10 points. But a 10-point win over a bad Auburn team really isn't going to do a whole lot for the fan base and making them feel better. So I feel like this is a game where Georgia needs to go out there and just dominate, especially in a rivalry game. So are we gonna see that, or are we gonna see a team that is a little hungover after that heartbreaking loss to Bama? That's what I'm really interested to see.
And I had another question, man. And my grandma, we live here in Arkansas, and my grandpa was a huge Razorback fan, and he had asked me, I think it was last week, if they were playing A&M. He was like, okay, look at Ole Miss, look at Tennessee. They've hired these great coaches, and Ole Miss, Tennessee used to be terrible, but when they got Lane Kiffin, they started rolling. When Tennessee got Josh Heupel, they started rolling. Why can't Arkansas be that? Is it NIL? Is it recruiting? And I'm like, Grandpa, they got Walmart money. They got Tyson money, so I don't think it's NIL. I just think it's coaching. I mean, they gave Sam Pittman, who literally said this is his dream job. He loves it here. But it's like, man, good guys are not going to be head coaches. And I'm sorry, Grandpa, that's what he is. I mean, you brought in Taylor Green, who can't throw the ball. All he can do is run around. He's not an elite passer. That's been proven.
Yeah, I think. You know what, Nick? Here's what I'm gonna do. I have a whole topic about NIL, and our man Trey was talking about Arkansas, so I'm gonna let you go, and I'm gonna answer your question right here on air because this is gonna be a pretty lengthy response. So just bear with me. All right, Nick. Appreciate the call, man.
Go down.
All right, I am gonna answer that question. I like what he said. And actually, it kind of goes into a topic. We'll close the lines for a second. Because this is going to be one of my infamous little take it and run. We'll edit that for now. All right. NIL problems. Let's talk about it. And let's talk about what Nick just said, especially, and we'll talk about Arkansas because that's what he talked about. He asked, and it slightly ties into NIL. All right. I'm not a fan of it. If you've watched the show for a while, I'm against it. I'm pretty anti-NIL. And here's the way. I'm anti the way NIL is run. You know what? If you want to pay players, if you want to, give them benefits, nice fancy cars and vacations and free this and free that, be my guest. Because look, they do a lot. They bring in a lot of money for these universities. They bring in a lot of money for these TV networks, and I get it. So they deserve some sort of credit, right? I still believe that a free education and access to the best facilities on campus, the best dietitians on campus, and free travel and lodging when you go to these cities and games and bowl games, if you're lucky enough, is pretty good. But that's just me. Maybe I'm old school. Pay them if you want. But the fact that we didn't have any regulations on this NIL when it began, that's why great coaches like Nick Saban have been run off. Nick Saban would still be coaching right now if NIL didn't exist. But he's tired of it. Jeff Hafley at Boston College left a head coaching position to become a coordinator with the Green Bay Packers, which isn't a bad gig. But he left being a head coach because he was tired of NIL. A lot of coaches are getting out of there because they're tired of NIL. Why? Because when you go and recruit, the player's like, yeah, I don't care. How much money you paying me? And here's the thing. It's like a job interview, right? Regardless of where you work, where you've worked, imagine going in for your job interview, and you sit down in front of your boss, the hire, and they go, "Hi, I'm whatever," and he goes, "Yeah, I don't care how much you paying me." They're not going to hire you because you know what? They're not going to hire you. That's the first thing you ask. They're like, "It's not happening." And the thing is, unfortunately, coaches have to kind of overlook that because if you get a 5-star quarterback walking into your office saying, "How much are you going to pay me?" and you go, "I don't want you," because you're only asking about money. Now you're going to lose out on him and someone else is going to get him, right? NIL is a joke. It's a horrible system. Someone mentioned Matthew Sluka over at UNLV, and I'll touch on that in a second. You get to the Arkansas issue. This ties into this. Hunter Yurachek, the athletic director at Arkansas, just came out the other day, and you mentioned, Nick, you said Tyson money, Walmart money. I think J.B. Hunt is in Fayetteville as well. Hunter Yurachek claims they're not coughing up the money. And honestly, I don't blame him. Look, Tyson just coughed up a lot of money to get John Calipari to leave Kentucky to come to Arkansas. And the writing was on the wall. He was going to get run out of Lexington anyway. So that's a massive hire for the Razorbacks in basketball. And he would not have come to Fayetteville if he had not been good friends with John Tyson, and the Tysons had to cough up a lot of money, not just for his salary, but also the NIL budget to get elite recruits to Fayetteville. Do you think those recruits really want to come to Arkansas? No, they want to come for the money. Calipari's a good recruiter. He's a heck of a coach, but Calipari could go to Northwest Southeast Barbershop College and they'd go play for him there, especially if they were going to pay him a couple $1 million a year. And that's just the bottom line. That's the bottom line for any coach at this point. But Juracek comes out and says, hey, they're not going to pay the money to get NIL. They're not going to support our program. They can't do that, or they don't want to do that, all right? We need you average day citizen, you average fan, to fund our program. And he tried to preach about how Ole Miss, is like top 5 nationally when it comes to NIL, fundraising. And now Arkansas is not. And he said, if we could just get the average household to commit to $100 a month. So keep in mind, do the math there, $1,200 a year. If we could get the average household to commit to $1,200 a year, we could be, and we need 100 of those, by the way, 100 households to do $1,200 a year, we would be good. I believe that's right. Could be wrong on that, right? But maybe it was 1,000 households, $100 a year. So regardless of the math, it's a lot of money for your average day, family of 3, family of 4, even your individual. That's hard because you know why? You want to know why? Because not only are you asking me to donate, then you want me to come to your games. Well, guess how much tickets are? Your average ticket's about $100, and then I got to drive there, and I got to pay about $30 for parking, and then I got to pay probably about $40, $50 for concessions with just a drink. You see the price. One beer and one hot dog is going to cost you about $20, $25 at these stadium prices. And then, if it's a night game, I'm probably going to need to buy a hotel room. Well, those prices always get jacked up in whatever city you go to because it's a hot ticket. Bottom line is, you take a family of 4. You take a family of 4 to a good college football game, an SEC caliber football game. Even if you buy nosebleed seats, you're looking at spending at least $1,000 probably on that. If we're being honest here, you're buying 4 tickets, you're buying concessions, or you're going out to dinner beforehand. Either way, you got to eat. You're paying for gas, you're paying for parking, and you might be paying for lodging, even if only for one night. Anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for one game. And I don't know if y'all follow college football. It's sarcasm. I know you do. Arkansas is absolute garbage. They're absolute garbage. So why is Ole Miss killing it in the NIL program? Why is Tennessee killing it in the NIL program and Arkansas is not? Because those teams are winning. They might not be, historically as on brand as Arkansas, if you want to say that, but, Arkansas has nothing to show in their trophy room since 1964. Let's be honest here. No one gives 2 craps about some, Southwest Conference title they won in the 1980s. All right? No one cares. I sure as hell don't care. Do not care. What have you done for me lately? That's the world we live in college football. What's Ole Miss done lately? They just won 11 games for the first time in program history and won the Peach Bowl over Penn State. Had a couple double-digit win seasons under Lane Kiffin, repeatedly finding themselves in the top 15, the top 10. Tennessee, just a few years ago, was the number 1 team in the country, probably would have made the college football playoffs if Hendon Hooker doesn't get hurt. Now, they're a top 5 team in the country and are probably going to make it to the college football playoff, barring any crazy injuries or just multiple collapses. One of those collapses, I can guarantee you, ain't coming against Arkansas this Saturday. That's for damn sure. It's not happening. It's not happening. So that's the problem with NIL too. You've got all these universities that, and this is an Arkansas thing, but all these universities begging their fans who are already paying enough as it is to come to their games. Because here's the thing, when they don't show up, then the athletic directors and the players and the coaches get all upset. We have this 80,000 seat stadium and no one's there. Well, I wonder why. Maybe it's because you're garbage. Maybe because you suck. Maybe because you're not winning games. No one wants to come see a team that consistently loses. No one wants to come see a team and pay all that money to get blown out in the first quarter, because that's what Arkansas does consistently, right? I mean, that's what they do. They have a big home game. Everybody gets excited. They get down 14-0 like that. The players give up and the game's over within the first 10 minutes. So you've paid all that money to watch your team get decimated in the first 10 minutes. Waste of money. So I actually saw someone put a good thing out there. I will pay you a set amount, $10, $20. I will pay you this much for each win that you give us. I think that's a great system. I will pay you if you do something good for me. And then the argument goes around and goes, all right, how can we ever be good if we don't make NIL money? If we can't fund these players? And my argument would be, how are you good beforehand? I get it's a new era, and I get you need funds, and you need to have that ability to recruit players in this new era. But bottom line is, people were competitive before NIL became a thing. All right? Clemson. Take Clemson, for example. That's what I would point to anybody that tells me that I can't compete unless I have NIL money. I'd say, well, Clemson's doing it. Clemson is not using the transfer portal. They're hardly spending anything in NIL, and they're winning consistently. I know maybe not Clemson standards, but they are what were they? 8-9 team last year with a bowl win, solid bowl win over Kentucky. The year before that, they won the ACC, won 11 games, lost to Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. This year, they're a top 15, 16 team in the country and seem to be on track to make the ACC championship, where if they win that, they will go to the college football playoff. And they're doing all of this because Dabo, with Dabo Swinney being as stubborn as he can be, refusing to do the NIL, refusing to pay a lot of money through the transfer portal, refusing to do it. It can be done. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. That would be my argument to any program out there. Stop begging your fan base to fund you, because you know what? You don't, just because you could have the largest budget in the world. You could have the largest budget in the world. I could give you $1 billion, and that still doesn't mean that you're going to win games. It still doesn't mean that you're going to be a national title contender. So that sounds really great to say that you're in the top 5 nationally when it comes to NIL funds. Good for you. But that still doesn't mean, essentially that what you're telling me is give us money and we're going to win. Money is going to pay for wins. That's not how it works. You've still got to have the players to go out there and win the game. You still got to have competent coaches on your sidelines to win the games. 5-star culture over 5-star talent. I've been saying that since day one. That's why teams can consistently compete against the top 5 teams in the country, these lower level squads. That's why Kentucky just beat Ole Miss. Kentucky ain't top 5? Kentucky, I don't even know what Kentucky is. Probably not even top 15, top 20, right? They just went on the road and beat Ole Miss. Do you think that's because they had more money than Ole Miss? No, it's because they had 5-star culture. They've got a great coach in Mark Stoops. They've got some talent. And they've got some talent they've lured in through the transfer portal NIL funds, but not nearly as much as Ole Miss. Ole Miss paid for their entire team, and they still lost. Bottom line is, guys, NIL, I don't think is good for the sport at all. And I see, Doggy, you're talking there. Clemson's been left back because of NIL. Yes, they've been left back. They went from national championships to being merely ACC conference title contenders. But here's the thing. The 12-team playoff is going to help with that, right? The last few years, haven't been great for them. Haven't been great. And every year, you're going to see teams go through those ebbs and flows, the highs and the lows, right? They aren't going to make the college football playoff with DJ Uiagalelei, right? That wasn't going to happen. Takes some time to build back up. But right now, they're looking really dang good. Right now, their only loss is to Georgia. I'm not saying that, they're going to go win national title or anything, but right now, with this new 12-team playoff, they can make the playoff. And I guess the point I'm trying to make here, Doggy, is this. You go to an Arkansas fan, you go to an Iowa State fan, who's actually been much better than some of these other teams. You go to a Duke fan, you go to an Illinois fan. I'm looking at my top 25 here, some of these teams. An Indiana fan. You go to any of those teams and you go, hey, are you going to be upset if you don't win a national title this year? Most of them are going to say no. Right? If you said, hey, before the season's going, hey, you're not going to win the national title, but you're going to make the college football playoff. Most of those fans would be happy with that. And we talked about this last week. There's only a handful of teams in the country. There's only a handful of teams in the country that legitimately can be considered national title contenders each and every year. Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, or maybe not Tennessee, but Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, guys like that. But you know what? That was the case 5 years ago before NIL really took off. That was the case 10 years ago. Those have been teams that are your blue blood programs. Some of them have been perennially title contenders, perennially getting elite recruits even before we paid players. So again, your average fan for your average mediocre team would be very happy with 9, 10 win seasons at playoff appearance. Even if you lose in the opening round, that would be horrible. You'd love to go further. But to say, hey, I saw my team make the college football playoff. I saw my team win the conference. I'd be happy with that. Again, if that was the case every year, eventually it'd get old because eventually you'd want to get over the hump. But this year, next year, 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row, yeah, I'd be pretty thrilled with that. Most average fans for average programs would. So, again, Clemson is doing a lot of this without really caving into the transfer portal NIL. It shows it can be done. So stop saying basically, hey, basically what I think it is, if you want my honest opinion, and then I'm done. I could go for 2 hours on this. I need to stop. Basically, what I think NIL is for some of these programs like Arkansas is basically they're going to blame the fans when they inevitably fail. That's basically what Hunter Yurachek's saying. That's basically what all these radio hosts are going to say. Basically, when Arkansas inevitably goes 5-7 or 4-8 or whatever, and the fans get reckless and restless because they are tired of losing, they're going to go, well, if you wanted to win so bad, you should have given us more money. And I think that's a ridiculous cop-out. I think it's a ridiculous cop-out because you know what? I could give you $1 million right now if I wanted to, right? Here's $1 million. I'm not the starting quarterback for the team, right? So I'm not Sam Pittman, who's about as dumb as they come over there on the sidelines. I'm not Taylon Green, who can't throw a 5-yard slant or has absolutely no pocket awareness. I'm not Landon Jackson, who many consider to be one of the best defensive ends in the SEC, but can't get off a block. That's not me, right? No amount of money is going to make those players be better, right? And just because I give you money and you bring in some elite talent doesn't mean they're going to live up to the expectations. So that's what these athletic directors are trying to do now. Basically saying, when we fail, it's not our fault. It's your fault. You, the fan, who, by the way, if it weren't for you, the fan, who for many years has supported us and given us money and has given us support, if you didn't exist, we wouldn't have a program. Okay, here's my last thing. I said, Picture an 80,000 seat stadium, empty for an entire season. Think about that. How would you feel then, Hunter Yurachek? How would you feel then, any athletic director in America? What would you do then? If the fans went on some riot, right, some strike, and said, we're not paying a dime to come to your game for the entire season. So every single game, your stadium was empty. How would you feel then? Fans are pretty important then, aren't they? Pretty important then, right? So stop basically blaming your failures on the fans because your program wouldn't exist without the fans. So maybe you should start doing your job as a coach, as an AD, as a player, because guess what? It's a job now. You will get no sympathy from me for any of these collegiate players. Because guess what? Some of these guys are making more money than any of us will see in our lifetime. Get no sympathy from me for your failures. Used to, it was like, oh, don't be too hard on them. They're just kids. They ain't kids anymore. They are not kids anymore. Far from it. They are multi-millionaires, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they're going to blame us, your average fan, for their failures, for their lack of performance. Think about that for a while and tell me if you think that's right or not. So, why is Arkansas failing? Why are some of these mediocre programs failing? You ask the athletic directors, it's you. We're failing because of you. Rant over. It could go on for hours. Really could. It doesn't sit well with me at all. Nick, I hope it answered your question. I hope I answered your question. Truly. But that's that. All right. Cool down for a second. I can keep going for that later on if I wanted to. Noah Madrigal, my guy. Thank you so much for that super chat. I really, really, really appreciate that. Great stream tonight. I would hope so. I hope I didn't bring anybody down with that rant. Somehow y'all get me distracted and off on something like that, like a teacher in middle school, man. You distract the teacher so you don't get any homework. Did I see the Sam Houston, Texas State highlights from this past Saturday? One of the best college football games I've been to. Oh, you were there. Nice. Nice. Very nice. And yes, that New Mexico State Auburn game. Yeah, I think that would definitely take the cake for sure. That was an amazing game. But yeah, I did watch some of the highlights and kind of studied the box score a little bit. Cause I'm not gonna lie to you, Noah. I was going through ESPN, the app. I was going through checking some scores, and I saw Texas State was up like 22-0, I think, right? And I was like, oh, it's over, it's done. And then the next thing I know, it's like a 40-39 final. I was like, holy cow. So I went back and watched some of it, and it was unbelievable. I love what I'm seeing out of Sam Houston this year, man. We've got our good friend Noah Caldwell, who was a national champion with the Bearcats, I should add, back when they were in the FCS. And, he kind of got me looking deeper into this program a few years ago, and they've got a Casey Keeler has been, just done a phenomenal job there. I remember mentioning last year, Sam Houston was a lot better than their final record indicated. And it really showed towards the end of the year. A lot of those games were losses, but they were one possession competitive losses. I still didn't think Sam Houston would get off this hot of a start. I definitely didn't think they'd beat Texas State, who I did think was maybe a playoff dark horse with that type of offense. So epic comeback once again shows you're never out of it. Sam Houston, it's kind of funny, Noah. Sam Houston made an unbelievable comeback. And no one really is talking much about that. Georgia made a similar thing. And everybody talked a lot about that, right? Georgia and Sam Houston had similar comebacks, but Georgia's was the one that got the most attention. Graded a higher magnitude game. I get it. But yes, I did catch the highlights. It was a really, really cool game. Didn't know you were there because it was in Houston, right? It was at NRG Stadium. So awesome venue for you to get to go check out. I'm glad you got to see it, man. That was a heck of a game to be at. And yeah, I'm very, very excited to see what's in store for Sam Houston going down the road, because this is a team that, especially in the weak Conference USA, should find themselves in the postseason, which is pretty awesome considering it's their second year at the FBS level. It's pretty cool. But Noah, thank you very, very much for that super chat. I really, really, really appreciate it. Same for you, Doggy. He says, "Make Disney great again." Don't get me off on that rant either, man. I could go on a tear with Disney stuff. I'm a big Disney guy, period. I've always, I went to Disney World tons growing up and grew up watching all the Disney movies, but now, they've acquired Star Wars, and I love Star Wars with a passion. I am a Marvel fan. I love Marvel. Don't like the products that have been put out for Star Wars or Marvel lately. I don't like what's been put out on either side lately, but I am still big fans. I'm actually, Doug, I'm working through, like, I've seen the Star Wars movies like millions of times, right? But I'm slowly working through another marathon for me. So I just finished up Revenge of the Sith and Solo, and then Rogue One, and I've got a New Hope on deck coming up. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I got a New Hope, and then I'm watching. So they do these live orchestras, like live performances with the movie. And they're doing Empire Strikes Back, which for me, that's my favorite Star Wars. Off topic discussion for football here. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars for me personally. And they're doing a live showing of the movie, and all the music will be played live by the orchestra, which I'm very excited about. So that's coming up in a few weeks. And so I wanted to make sure I got to watch all the movies leading up to that, and then I'll come home and watch episode 6. And that's it, right? They only made 6 movies. I'm pretty sure if you look it up, there's only 6 Star Wars movies. I always wish George Lucas had made a 7, 8, and 9. It's really a shame that it's a shame that they didn't. It's a shame that those were never created, because I really think they could have been great stories. Definitely missed an opportunity there to make a few more. Thank you again, Carter Hansen, my guy. Thank you so much. Go Utes, baby. Go Utes. Go Utes. Let's get Cam Rising back. That's the big thing. Let's get Cam Rising back. That's the biggest thing. But Carter, thank you for watching. Thank you for that super chat. Every single bit of that counts. Every super chat donation goes right back into the channel. We get enough super chats. I might count that as an expert pick sale to get us one step closer to our goal of 100 expert pick sales this year, which in turn leads to a 24-hour live stream. So, thank you very, very much for that, Carter. I appreciate it. You, Doggy, Noah, all of you. Thank you very, very much. All right, let's do this. Yes, Alex, you can call me. And you know what, Alex? We'll make you the last caller of the night. Alex, give me a call. Let's talk. I'm going to hit the last few comments, and then we'll call it a night because I think I do have to head out around now. I will make sure I delay my prior engagements a little bit longer so we can get one more call in. I can answer all of your questions and comments as previously stated. So, Alex, give us a call. The number is ticking across the screen right now. We'd love to talk here for a few minutes before we wrap up tonight. Gideon, good to see you, Gideon. You've been asking about these live streams for a while, and I was like, man, I wonder where he's at. Wonder where he's going to be. But I know you're over your sleep schedule's out of whack, and you're obviously in a much tougher place, time wise, to watch our shows. So he's finally adjusted. We will touch on North Carolina, Gideon, here in 1 second. But let's get a call from Alex here for a few minutes. Alex, what's going on?
What's going on? This is your Michigan State fan.
What's that?
This is your Michigan State fan.
Michigan State fan. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I remember very well.
Don't want to talk about Michigan State because they're going to get blasted by Oregon on Friday.
More than likely. But yeah, let's talk about it, man. What's going on?
I want to talk about the Duke Blue Devils starting 5-0.
Yeah. I think they had, for me, have been one of the more pleasant surprises of the beginning of this year, solely because I didn't expect them to be this good. I thought the Manny Diaz hire was a great hire. I love the addition of Malik Murphy to the transfer portal. But my biggest concern for Duke was the line of scrimmage. I really didn't think they had a lot on the offensive line. I really didn't think they had a lot on the defensive line. I was like, you're not going to win many games if you're getting dominated up front week in and week out. But that hasn't been the case. And I thought last week's win over North Carolina, being down 20 points and then coming back to win, was gutsy. I mean, that is gutsy. That took a lot of grit. Most teams would just have folded when they get down like that. Duke didn't. So, they've got some tough games down the stretch over the last, probably 7 games of the year, but they're bound to win at least one. I mean, I didn't think Duke was going to continue the success left behind by Mike Elko, at least not immediately. But Manny Diaz is already defying those odds very quickly.
Do you think Duke will be ranked if they beat Georgia Tech on Saturday?
Probably not. Which is unfortunate, right? It's hard to believe that a 6-0 power team could be out of the rankings. But the problem, Alex, and I'm gonna look up the schedule for you on what's coming up too. The problem is they really haven't played anybody, right? Like the North Carolina win was good, but let's keep in mind North Carolina just got destroyed by James Madison. The Northwestern win on the road was good, but Northwestern really isn't much of anything. And then their other wins are Middle Tennessee, UConn only by 5, and Elon. So, like a 6-0 start would be great, but definitely I don't think rank worthy. Now, I'll tell you this: if they beat Georgia Tech and then they beat Florida State, which again isn't saying much either, but to be 7-0, yeah, they'd be a low top 25 team if they can do that.
Last question: what has happened to Kansas?
Kansas, I think, and this is maybe an unpopular opinion for some, I think it was a bad thing for Jalen Daniels to come back. And they didn't have a choice, right? I mean, Jason Bean carried the load, but Bean had to go. His eligibility was gone. But I think Jalen Daniels, it's coming back from injuries, multiple injuries, like he's suffered pretty much everywhere. I think it's been his back, it's been his arm, it's been everywhere. Or shoulder, whatever it was. I think he just hasn't fully recovered from his injuries. He's a turnover machine. So in turn, Kansas has kind of become a one-dimensional offense. We knew they could run the ball well, but it's pretty easy to beat a team if you can just sell out in the run and their quarterback's going to throw you the ball. So I think, and then on top of that, the defense was never that good to begin with. They were supposed to improve. And I think they have improved a little bit over the last couple of years in the landslide pool, but never enough. But yeah, I think Jalen Daniels' lackluster play has been what's killed them. And I think the team kind of got demoralized. You lose on the road to Illinois, okay, season's still alive. When they lost that home game to UNLV, blowing a pretty decent lead in that game too, I think this team just kind of lost all hope.
All right, that's all I got.
Alex, man, thank you for the call. Hope to have you call in next week too. All right.
Bye.
You got it, man. All right, that was our boy Alex, Michigan State resident fan. For your sake, Alex, I hope they put up a decent showing against Oregon. Oregon's good. They've got a lot of talent, but they've kind of disappointed me. They haven't blown teams out the way I expected them to. I really thought they'd dominate UCLA, and they won by 21, but that's not as good as we thought. They definitely didn't do that against Idaho. They barely beat Boise State. Like Oregon's really not annihilating these teams like many of us thought they would do. So, yes, Michigan State got destroyed against Ohio State by 31 points. Maybe they're going to face a similar fate against Oregon, but maybe Oregon isn't going to put them away as bad as you think. Regardless, they got 3 wins. Michigan State's got 3 wins, and I think for some that's almost higher or about as many as they thought they'd get the entire season. So, I didn't think they'd beat Maryland. I didn't think they beat Maryland a few weeks ago. So, are already exceeding expectations in my book. So, Jonathan Smith was a good hire. It's just going to take some time for him to get back to that truly competitive level that they want to be at. All right. Got a couple more questions in the chat. We'll close up the lines for now. Y'all did great. Calling in tonight. We had some great calls, some great questions, some great discussions. So I appreciate every single one of you that did so. You got me off my rant about NIL. In the meantime, while we were doing that, Daryl Turner popped by. Daryl, good to see you. We just talked about Duke with Alex. I've been very impressed with them. Happy to see them doing so well in year 1 under Manny Diaz. Oregon State kind of doing better than expected as well. Are they going to win? Are Duke and Oregon State going to win? Duke, probably not. Like I was telling Alex, I mean, if they beat Georgia Tech and they beat Florida State, I think they're ranked, but I don't think that they're going to beat Georgia Tech. I think I'm double checking that on the road. I think they're 9-point underdogs, I think. Double check that. Yeah. I think 9-point underdogs. And then Oregon State, they're playing Colorado State. I do like their odds there. I think they can beat Colorado State. The Rams aren't a bad team, but I think they can win that. So 1-1 between Duke and Oregon State this weekend. Boston College, Virginia, Tommy. Virginia's playing good ball. Virginia's playing better ball than I expected. I might lean in Virginia. I think they can beat Boston College. It's gonna be close. Like that's a toss-up, but I'll go Virginia. Why not? Yeah, Max, that's a fantastic comment. And I think that it's true. And a lot, it goes into a lot. Freeze is blaming players for losing at Auburn. You can't blame NIL. Yeah, I mean, players and coaches decide the outcomes of games. I will say this. I don't think a coach should ever blame his players, right? Like, especially on blast in public to go like, hey, quarterback, Peyton Thorne, you suck. Like, man, if our quarterbacks were better, we'd win. Or hey, if our running backs could hold on to the ball, we'd win. Like, you don't publicly. That's like when Shedeur Sanders pretty much called out his entire offensive line to the media. I mean, yeah, the offensive line played better the next week, but like, I think it's unprofessional. I think it's wrong to do. You don't, as a coach or a teammate, you don't point fingers at one of your other members of your staff or your players publicly like that. You do that internally if you need to. But remember, there's no I in team. So it's a group effort here. But so Freeze blaming his players, I think is extremely wrong. But you're right. You're blaming the players. Well, how did the players get there? They got there typically from recruiting. Well, who recruited them? You did. Okay. What about NIL? We bought these players with NIL money. Oh, okay. Let's blame NIL. But no, we can't blame NIL because NIL is what got these players here. If we didn't think these players were good, why would we spend money on them? Like, it's just this endless cycle, right? Like, it's like, it's like like a flow chart. Like this leads to this, which leads to this. And then if you backtrack, if you follow your steps or retrace your steps, oh, look, it all comes back to the same thing, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It comes down to culture, which guess what? Always comes from the top. The root of most problems, comes from the coaches. Wow. That makes the most sense considering they're the highest paid guy typically on the team, right? The one that should take the bulk of the responsibility. It is the coach's job to have the team fully prepared each week. Does that mean they're going to win every week? No. But it is their job to put them in the best position possible to win, to have them as best prepared as possible to win. It is the coach's job to implement schemes and plays and strategies that best fit his team. First-year head coaches sometimes, can't work with them too much because they haven't had time to bring their guys in, right? But I will argue now in this era of NIL, you can bring your guys in. Look at what Kurt Cignetti's doing in Indiana. The majority of Indiana has been brought in from James Madison and other programs, the transfer portal through NIL. And look what Indiana's doing. They're 5-0, nationally ranked, and there's a very dang good chance, I'm not even joking on this, that Indiana could finish the year 11-1. That's how good this team is. That's how favorable this schedule is. The lone loss would be on the road to Ohio State. I think many would expect that. They could be favored in every single game the remainder of the season. And guess what? The Hoosiers go 11-1. They're making the college football playoff. There's no doubt about that. So, again, it is the coach. The coach tells his coordinators, hey, go out and get this player. Oh, they want $500,000? We've got that in the budget. Give it to them. The coach does this. The coach does that. Yes, you can get more money. You can get more money through donations from your fans and from your ADs and stuff like that. But bottom line is it all starts at the top. And what's the top? It's the coach. It's the coach. You, at the end of the day, are the one that should take full responsibility for whatever happens. Great comment. Great comment, Max. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Christopher's Duke for real? Kind of like we talked about a couple of times already. Yeah, I think they're legit. I think they're a bowl team. And they're a bowl team. They're not like an ACC title contender or anything because they really haven't played anybody. But they're a bowl team, and that's a big accomplishment in year one under Manny Diaz. I would say that. Let's see here. Doggy says I look forward to the Marvel, Star Wars, ESPN, Disney animation, Pixar, all ruined from Disney. And he looks forward to that Disney live stream or that Disney rant on a live stream. Maybe sometime down the road we'll have a live stream where we don't even talk football. I don't even know how many people would watch that. But like you bring your questions and your comments about non-football things, and then we just go to town. Maybe that's what we do. I don't know. Maybe so. So let me see. Answer a few more comments here. Noah, it was your first time in Houston. Nice. Respond to this text real quick as we get first time in Houston for the Sam Houston and Texas State game, and then he went over to see Rice and Rice. Oh, nice! So you went to 2 games. Oh, that's awesome. I've always wanted to do that, like a double header. I've always wanted to go to like the 2 games in one day. Let's see what that says. That's really cool, dude. I love that. I was actually in Dallas last weekend, so still pretty far away, but not too bad. Gideon, what's your stint on UNC and where it went wrong, where to go from here? So I want to answer that. We're going to answer Brady. We're going to answer Doggy. And then we did have one guy call in that has been trying to call in for a long time. And he just texted, so I need to answer that call. So we'll get him on. That'll be our last call tonight. So we'll wrap up here shortly. But let's do these calls first, or these texts first. Gideon, first, glad you're here, man. Thank you for all your support. Glad you can make it over, if only for a little bit, and that we've worked out the time. UNC, I think this needs to be the last year under Matt Brown. Let me respond to that. And then we'll make that short. Okay, great. I think this needs to be the last year under Matt Brown, Gideon, if you want my honest opinion. He's a great coach. He's a legendary coach. He's helped kind of restore North Carolina football to relevancy and being competitive. I mean, was in the ACC championship a few years ago, had him in the Orange Bowl during that COVID year. I mean, he's had good seasons and has produced some great talent. I mean, Sam Howell, Drake May, like he's done well. But it obviously North Carolina was dealt a really bad blow. Like I wonder what the season would look like right now if Max Johnson doesn't get hurt. Like losing your quarterback early in the year to a season-ending injury is devastating. It is demoralizing. But UNC started winning a few games after that. So it's like, hey, they won't be that bad. No one predicted a 70-point allowance, I guess, to James Madison a few weeks ago. And here's the problem, and I think you would agree with this, Gideon. What has been North Carolina's issue pretty much since Mac Brown got there? It's been the defense. It's been the defense. The defense has been absolutely terrible. Offense is typically pretty good, but it's been the defense. So how they have not been able to rectify that over the last week, because it wasn't just like a last year thing. It's been a multiple year in a row type of thing. They've changed coordinators. You know, they've had Gene Chizik and they have Jeff Conley. They've gone over and over with different coordinators, and it's gone nowhere. What do you do at that point? They've recruited relatively well. They've had talent on that side of the ball, and yet they can't play a lick of defense. And then on top of that, it's like you just knew. You just know North Carolina was always going to lose a game that they shouldn't. You know, when they got off of those really hot starts, it's like, maybe North Carolina's going to be a playoff contender. It's like, no, because they're going to lose as a 20-point favorite to Virginia. Or no, they're going to lose the 20-point favorite to Georgia Tech because they just can't seem to beat. Like, you just knew that was coming. So complacency, failure to adapt, failure to have any sense of a defense, those are all things that have been going wrong for North Carolina, not just this year, but for multiple years. And I think people kind of turn a blind eye to that because North Carolina did have some 8, 9, I think they had 10-win season in there, right? I mean, like they, were competitive. This year, not so much. I mean, to get beat down by James Madison, then to blow a 20-point lead to Duke, your rival, that's demoralizing. And I'm concerned about the mindset of the team over the rest of this season. Are they ACC title contenders? No. Are they going to go to a great bowl game? No. But they can still salvage this year by going to a decent bowl game and getting a winning season. And ultimately, I think that's what they need to do to send Mac Brown off into the sunset. He's getting older. The game is passing him by a little bit. I think you get out there, you get to a mediocre bowl game, you win it for him, you finish with a winning season, go out on a high, done. And ultimately, that's Mac Brown's decision. That's his decision in the long run because they're not going to fire him, I don't think. So that's just my take, Gideon, on what I think they should do. Those are things that have gone wrong over the last few years. Certainly what's gone wrong this year. And I think they wrap up the year with Mac Brown. He needs to be done, and they need to get a guy that's in there that's young, a younger defensive mind to come in and really rebuild North Carolina. Because I think they've missed some opportunities to take advantage of a weaker ACC over these last few years. Brady, thoughts on Notre Dame's win over Louisville? To me, that was by far their best offensive performance of the year, and the defense did everything they needed to do. Yeah, I was very pleased to see that win for Notre Dame over Louisville. Their offense really wasn't that great. They were significantly outgained by the Cardinals, significantly. But what I thought was interesting, Brady, was the fact that it felt like a reverse of what happened last year. It was a close game, competitive game. The difference was turnovers and mistakes, turnovers on downs and turnovers. Last year, it was Notre Dame that was committing those turnovers and failing. This year, it was Louisville that was committing those turnovers and failing. So it was really a complete 180 from what we saw in Louisville back in 2023, and Notre Dame capitalized off it and got the win. And that's a massive win. The offense didn't look bad, but didn't look great. The defense did look phenomenal. And that was what they needed to maybe get some confidence back. Because the last few weeks, they really haven't played anybody noteworthy. It is what it is. But now they just got a top 15 win, which is massive for them. The schedule remains relatively light over these next couple of weeks. Army won't be tough. Georgia Tech won't be tough. Florida State now not much easier than we expected. USC in the season finale, we're still a ways away from that. We've always said Notre Dame's got to win out. They've got to win out if they want to have a shot at the college football playoff. They just passed one of the biggest remaining tests they have, and I thought they did so with a very impressive performance. Again, defense is going to be the key for them this year. The offense hopefully will continue to get better. Again, didn't look bad. I don't think it looked great. But that defense will continue to carry them. And if Riley Leonard continues to take that next step forward, they can be a playoff team. So I was very happy to see that kind of turnaround for Notre Dame. Brady, another question. What's your opinion on the UNLV situation? I think Saluka has every right to be criticized, selfish. A strong man stands up for himself, and even stronger man stands up for others. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that. I don't know the full story there. Obviously, I don't know what he agreed to, what UNLV promised. I don't know. Bottom line is this. If he talked to an assistant and they said, hey, we're going to offer you $30,000 to, or 100, I think it was 100,000, right? We're going to offer you $100,000 to come play for us. He should not have left until he got that in writing, right? Like you don't go, okay, I'm going to leave everything behind to come play for you. Show up and go, where's my money? And they go, oh, no, that's idiotic. That's idiotic. So he was an idiot for doing that. Even if UNLV lied, shame on them. But bottom line is, you as a man have to go, that's a great deal. Let me get confirmation of that, and I'll be there. I'll sign a contract, and, after I say I'm guaranteed to be on campus or guaranteed to play 3-4 games, whatever, I get my money, whatever. But that's where he made a mistake, if that's true. Or if the rumors are true that he felt that his value went up after wins over Houston and Kansas, if he felt that his value was more than what he was already getting paid, and so he was like, hey, UNLV, give me more money right now. They're like, nah, man. He's like, all right, I'm out. Then shame on him. Either way, he's in the wrong, right? Either way, he's an idiot and he's in the wrong, and he did UNLV a big disservice because leaving your teammates high and dry like that is unbelievable. It's a very selfish act, especially when you're that good. I still wouldn't be a fan of the move if UNLV was 0-4. I wouldn't be a fan of it then. I still think it looks bad. But when you are an undefeated team that has a legitimate, true shot at the college football playoff, and you leave your team in the middle of the season, come on, man. Come on. Like you said, you've got to be stronger than that. You've got to be smarter than that. You've got to be way less selfish than that. There is no I. And my favorite sign last week was, hey, Matthew Sluka, it's UNLV, not UNLIV or NIL, UNILV. It was. But the problem is, guys, you're going to see more and more of this. You're going to see more and more of this. You're going to see so many more players over the course of the next few years quit mid-season because they feel like they're not getting paid enough, or they want some extra assurances that they're not going to get, or whatever. And they're going to go, because you can redshirt within 4 games. So, 3 games have gone by. Our team sucks. We're not going to go win anything this year, so I'm going to redshirt. Because I don't want to waste my year of eligibility on a bad team. I want to save it and transfer to a better team where maybe I'll get paid more money and maybe I'll win. You will see so much of that over the next few years. We're already seeing a handful of instances of it now happening at other programs. It won't be the last. It can all be stopped if regulations are put in place. But the NCAA does not want to do that, nor will NCAA ever do that. They don't want to do it. They will not do it. And therefore, it is once again crippling and destroying the game that we love. Matthew Sluka is just the first big case that we have seen, but there will be many, many more. But I think it's a terrible situation. I think he's extremely in the wrong. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Once again, UNLV lied to him and didn't come through with their word, didn't honor their word. Shame on them too, right? They are in the wrong for that as well. But something should have been worked out behind the scenes, or hire a lawyer. I don't know. Do what you got to do, but to leave your teammates high and dry like that is extremely wrong. And I am rooting for UNLV more so than ever now. And I'm blanking on the name. I think Haj Malik Williams, I believe, is the new quarterback's name. I hope he just lights it up. He was great against Fresno State. UNLV dominated, and I hope they just keep winning to show, hey, Sluka, you thought you were that good? Nah, we could have won with anybody out there. You're not as good as you think. And he wasn't. He really wasn't that good, guys. He was not that good of a quarterback. They didn't beat UNLV they didn't beat Houston and Kansas because of him. I can tell you that. It was not solely because of him. So I hope that they continue to win big. I hope they have great quarterback play. And I hope they show, hey, you just have a really big ego and you're not as good as you think you are. So go ahead, transfer to some other contender. And I think most of the country will be very excited to watch you fail. I think that is my take. Doggy, any chance Florida State takes Colorado's coach in the future? Any chance Florida State takes Deion? What's his alma mater, right? I don't think Deion's a good coach. I think that would be a very bad move for Florida State. Again, if you want money, if you're wanting to get, if you're looking to make a lot of money and get a lot of media attention, that's a fantastic hire. But if you're looking to win national championships, Deion Sanders is not the guy for you. Great start this year. They're 4-1. They're 4-1. Big win over UCF. I didn't think they beat UCF, so credit to them for that. But I think there's a consideration. I think if they get rid of Norvell, whether that's this year or next year, I think Florida State would be crazy to not pick up the phone to Deion. Because I think Deion would love to take that job. I'd be surprised if he didn't want to take that job at Florida State. But so yeah, is there a chance? Absolutely, there's a chance. If it happens, will it pan out? No, it will not. It will end very poorly in the long run, and that's a big risk you got to take too, right? Like bringing home the golden child, the golden boy, and Deion Sanders. If he does poorly at Florida State, and you have to make that decision to fire him. Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. So it's almost one of those things like, hey, look, we like you. I know you like us. It's like a relationship, right? It's like, hey, we're really good friends. If we start dating, it could ruin our friendship. So we might be a really good fit and we might work out long term. But if we don't, then everything's ruined. So why don't we just not do this, right? Like, why don't we just not mess with this? That might be the best thing to do for Florida State and Deion, honestly. Yeah. I don't know. I'm proud of that analogy, personally. Gideon, last thing. Love everything about Mac. It's been very frustrating to see them not making progress on defense despite high-level recruits playing down to opponents, missing opportunities to maximize potential. I mean, you nailed it. I like Mac, too. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great coach, one of the best in history. I mean, he's up there. He's up there. But you're right. They've recruited well. The recruits haven't panned out. A lot of that goes back to coaching, both on Mac Brown and their defensive coordinators. Playing down to opponents is really the big one, right? I mean, they've had generational quarterback talent on offense and haven't been able to do much with it. They've played down to opponents in, Virginia, Georgia Tech, back in 2020, Florida State. They were number 5 team in the country and lost. We're getting a call. We're going to put them on hold for 1 second. Hey, 1 second. We're going to put you on hold.
Okay.
Sound like he's in the car. So, and it's going to be our last call of the night. But, yeah, it's frustrating to see. And I hate teams that play down to their opponents, right? Like, I hate teams that are heavy favorites or that are a significantly better team, and they struggle against those mediocre opponents. They're better than them. They're sleepwalking because they overlook them. And the sad thing is, you do it once, fool me once, okay, fool me twice, fool me 3 times, it gets worse and worse and worse. It's only happened once. You should learn from your mistakes. North Carolina has not. Bottom line. All right, our last caller of the night. Let's get him on the line. Who do we have with us?
This is Carter Galbraith of the Arkansas Wizards.
Oh, goodness. Okay. What's going on, Carter?
So I just won our playoff game in the craziest fashion possible. We're up. We're down 19-14 with 2 minutes left, and our receiver comes in motion to the right. And we snap the ball. He goes like on a wheel / go route down the right sideline. It goes up, absolutely mosses the defender. Like, it was basically helmet catch, but on the defender's head and not his own head. Comes down with it, takes the ball away, and runs all the way to the end zone for a touchdown. But we're sitting there celebrating, and the refs hadn't, officially said touchdown. So they gather and talk, and they said there was an inadvertent whistle on the sideline where he caught the ball. So we had to start the play from the 50-yard line instead of the touchdown to put us up 20-19 with under 2 minutes. And then we didn't score. We hold them with about 6 seconds left. We get the ball back. Don't score, game over. The refs come over and talk to us afterwards. They're like, hey, so what the whistle was the ref had the whistle in his mouth, and when he caught the ball, he coughed. He didn't actually blow it. He coughed into the whistle, which made a noise. So they
ruled inadvertent whistle, but we can appeal to the intramural committee tomorrow or tonight and basically tell a situation that we got a touchdown to put us up with less than 2 minutes to win the game. And they'll look at that. They'll talk to the refs who officiated the game, which they told us that they'll be on our side for this. And then we'll actually be written down as the winners and we play tomorrow.
All right. Well, Carter, we appreciate the call and congrats on the win. I guess there was no question or topic to be discussed, but congrats on your wild win, and definitely try to give us a call back with another question next week or something.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
All right.
Gridiron Expert.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting call. Intramurals, man. Intramurals. With that being said, that was interesting to say the least. We'll call it a night right at 2 hours. Thank you all for joining us tonight on another Wednesday live stream, man. I'm enjoying these. They get more fun with each week. And next week, man, talk about next week. We're going to have a lot to recap from week 6. We're going to have a lot to recap from week 6, which will be, it looks lackluster on paper, but I think it's going to be a lot better than people realize. And we'll recap that. And then next week, week 7, that is the game, I think, or the week that we have circled on our calendar. Those big matchups: Ohio State, Oregon, LSU, Ole Miss, USC, Penn State, Texas, Oklahoma, now as SEC members. Tons of massive games on deck that we will not only be predicting on the channel, but be discussing with you in a live call-in show next week. I want to say tomorrow. I wish. Next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. But until then, stay tuned for more content here on the channel. Check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks. The more we get, the closer we get to our goal, the closer we get to a 24-hour live stream. Check it out. Sign up for those. Our picks are already out. We want you to take advantage of those. But as always, we appreciate every single one of you. Scotty B, Brady, Doggy, our man Gideon. So glad that you could join us today and we could talk to North Carolina football. Hope to have you back next Wednesday as well. James, our man Alex, our man Nick, who called in. We had Trey, who was commenting earlier. Trey, we appreciate you and all your support. My man Max Todd, our super chat donors, and Noah, Doggy, and Carter Hansen. Our man DM, Double O'Neill, Penn State Jim, Anthony Allen. So many other people. Scotty B, if I didn't say that already. My man Jerry, my man Mitch, Austin Pruitt, Robert. We appreciate every single one of you guys. Your questions, your comments, your calls. It's what carries these live streams, what makes them very, very fun, very, very enjoyable. And again, makes you guys all the more better a part of our GE Nation. But we appreciate all of you. Have a great rest of your night. Stay tuned tomorrow. We've got prediction videos coming out on the channel, but we will see you again next Wednesday. Do not miss out, 7 p.m. Central Time for our next live stream show. Good night, everybody.